everybody. It is draft day here in the NHL with the first round kicking off Friday night. This is going to be a really, really interesting draft. I think one of the more interesting drafts that we've seen as far as just the uncertainty of where players are going to go, because we've had so much happen over the past year and a half. Obviously, players weren't playing in the normal leagues in some cases. Players got a lot less games than they normally would have leading up to this year's draft. So it's a really fun draft to kind of be going into because we just don't know what's going to happen. But there's a lot left to be determined, and we're going to find out a lot of that here on Friday night with round number one. So as you can see, we got a special guest on. It is Raybro, the absolute legend from Hockey YouTube. Our resident Hockey YouTube scout is here, and we're going to talk about the top 10 and just the top prospects heading into this draft and what Raybro thinks of these guys and where they might end up going. So Raybro, dude, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it, and this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I guess to go right off the bat, I just want to know, like, what's your big board looking like here? Who do you got at the top? Who are your top three players right now heading into this?
In terms of who I would draft, or in terms of just the rankings altogether?
Just your thoughts on like who you think the three best players are.
I think personally the three best, in my opinion, would have to be Luke Hughes, Matthew Beniers, and William Eklund. Those three.
Nice. So that's interesting because the big name that most people are putting at number one is not in your top three, and that is Owen Power from Michigan. Power is, pretty much ranked one in almost everybody's list, but you don't have him in the top three. What are your thoughts on Owen Power, and why don't you have him up there with all these other ranking lists?
With Owen Power, I have some problems with this game while watching this game, obviously. His defensive game needs work in the NCAA. He shouldn't be playing in the NHL first year. He needs to use his size more because there's lots of times where when he's trying to protect the puck in the defensive zone, trying to, push off defenders, he gets overmatched, even though he's obviously 6'5", 6'6". So obviously he needs to gain more muscle or be more physical in terms of shutting the other team down defensively. And I think his offense, he has some offensive upside. He can move around the puck. I wouldn't put him on the power play, but he can be on there for sure. Good shot. He has good upside. His defensive game needs work. I don't see him being like a Victor Hedman like everyone's telling him to be, but I think in the end, I would grab him up in the top 10, and he could be a solid top 4 D-man. But he shouldn't be, expect to be like a Norris winning type defenseman for sure.
All right. Out of all of the prospects, who do you think is the most NHL ready right now? Because this seems like a draft that I think anyway that we might not see anybody drafted this year play in the NHL this coming season. I think everyone still has development to go. But if someone were to one of these guys were to make that jump right away, who do you think it would be?
I think Matthew Beniers is probably the biggest choice. I mean, his game is a lot translatable.
Mm-hmm.
He's a solid defensive guy, solid offensive guy. He can move around the puck, good skater as well. I think he's the most translatable option for sure, and he could honestly be NHL ready, plug him on the third, fourth line for sure if you were to put him in the NHL year one.
Nice. I'm personally very high on Beniers. I think he's the best forward in this draft. And there's been a lot of comparisons that I've seen with him and him being compared to guys like Jonathan Toews and Patrice Bergeron, who obviously have been premier two-way players in the NHL. And I've noticed with a lot of the forwards that are highly ranked in this year's draft, a lot of them have that two-way label on them, where sometimes we see players come out of junior or wherever they're coming from, and they put up huge points and they're huge offensive guys, but the defense takes a little while to get to the NHL level. Whereas it seems like a lot of the guys this year are playing high at a high level defensively at very young ages. And do you think that that translates or helps them translate to the NHL better and quicker than guys who are coming in with a ton of talent but still need to learn the defensive side of the game?
Oh yeah, definitely for sure. I mean, there's guys like Lee Sell and Eklund who excel at who work on defensive. They're decent at it compared to last year's draft, where they know where to be defensive awareness. And other guys in the WHL. I feel like nowadays for the 2021, I think coaches now are stretching to play on your own end to before you can go offense for sure, definitely. I mean, although every draft there's always the players that aren't the greatest defensively for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. A player that I find really interesting going into this draft, because I have seen him his ranking vary pretty widely, is Brandt Clarke, who normally plays in the OHL, but obviously the OHL did not have a season this past year. So he went over and played in Slovakia and actually had a really good season. He had 15 points and was a plus player. And yeah, it looked like he played well over there. But I've seen Clarke ranked as high as 2 or 3, and I've seen him as low as like 7, 8. And it's kind of been anywhere in between with him. So what do you think of Brandt Clarke, and where do you have him in your rankings?
For me, Brandt Clarke, I have him in my rankings at number 5. I like Brandt Clarke a lot. His hockey IQ is very, very good as a defenseman. He's able to run a power play as well. I mean, there's some issues, of course, with his skating ability. He needs to tweak that a little bit before he can be effective in the NHL. He can be a very good top 2 defenseman on your team for sure if you pick him up. Such a solid player, and I think he's going to have a really good season, Barry, for his draft plus 1 year.
Absolutely. I'm very high on him as well. I have him ranked as, for me, the second best defenseman in this draft. And he's a coveted right shot as well. There's quite a few left shot guys that are high in the rankings, but Clarke's a right shot. And we know that NHL teams are always clamoring for right shot D-men. So I'm excited to see where he goes. You mentioned Luke Hughes, another defenseman. It seems like this top 10 has some very good defensive prospects in it. And Luke Hughes is another one of those guys, obviously the third of the Hughes brothers. And one thing that jumped out to me right off the bat is that he is a lot bigger than both of his brothers. Jack and Quinn are on the smaller side, but Luke is 6'2", and he's going to grow into a full-size NHL body. Obviously, tremendous skater, tons of offensive instincts. He put up big points with the U.S. National Development Program team this year. You have him ranked right up there at the top. What do you like about Luke Hughes, and what do you think he projects to be in the NHL?
Personally, what I've seen from him, I think he could be a top 5 D-man in the NHL league-wide. I think, again, his skating ability, his offensive upside is just truly remarkable. His passing ability is also really good. He's such a good puck mover. And obviously, if you're with a family with Jack Hughes and Quinn Hughes, you're bound to learn a few things about their game as well. So obviously, there's a few defensive issues with Hughes' game that could be rounded out playing in Michigan in the NCAA. But I love Luke Hughes, and if Anaheim or even Vancouver or New Jersey, whoever picks him up can use him on the power play, and whoever has him is going to be very good on the back end.
That would be pretty awesome, seeing Luke and Quinn play together in Vancouver on the same decor. That would be that'd be a dream right there for sure. So, well, like you said, Luke Hughes is going to Michigan next year, and there's a lot of Michigan players talked about in this draft. Another one that I think has kind of fallen under the radar a little bit is Kent Johnson. He put up a lot of points at Michigan this year, and obviously with Power and Beniers getting a lot of the attention, Kent Johnson hasn't been talked about as much, but he could go in the top 10. And I think there's a lot of potential upside there that people may not know about because so much attention's been paid to those other guys at Michigan. What are your thoughts on Johnson?
I think with Johnson, if he pans out right, he's going to be probably one of the best players in this draft for sure. I think he'd probably be like a top 15 player if he pans out. I mean, he's basically playing like he's in NHL 21. I mean, angles, the highlight reels, he loves to be
Yep.
flat. That you love about him like that. Such a good passer, stuff like that. The problems to this game, though, however, is his pace of play and him, overusing his stick handles too much and losing
Hmm.
possession. But again, it's for him. It's more like just playing another year in NCAA, getting used to the systems and stuff like that. He's a very fun player to watch, and put him in the right system, right team. He can be fantastic for sure.
Awesome, awesome. We've gone through a lot of highly ranked players here, but one that might potentially end up being one of the best goal scorers to come out of this draft is Dillon Genther from the WHL, and he's another guy similar to Brant Clark, where I've seen his ranking vary around between different rankings lists. Some people have him possibly going in the top 3, others have him more kind of in the 6, 7, 8 area. Just your thoughts on him and what he brings to the table. It looks like he could become a really good scoring winger.
I mean, I had a chance to watch him a lot since, of course, he's from the Oil Kings. So I get to see him a lot, especially from him during the CSSHL time with NEX. But he's such a smart player. He's such a credible passer as well. To be a very good winger. I think, honestly, he could be a solid complementary top 6 winger. I don't see him being like a top 15, top 20 player, but I still think he's gonna be really solid. And if you put him on the line with guys who can pass in the puck, he can shoot it really well. And I think he could be a really good contributor for a Stanley Cup team for sure.
I want to mention some goaltenders here because there's a couple that have been talked about as possible first round picks, and Jesper Wallstrm out of Sweden is one that's generally been ranked higher. He for the most part is the higher ranked goaltender in this draft. And there's questions as to whether there's going to be a goaltender taken in the top 10 or if he slips to more towards the middle part of the round. But um, what do you like about Wallstead, and what do you think might stop him from getting to the level that he needs to get to if he's taken that early?
I think with all said, he's a franchise level goaltender. I like to see what he's done as an 18-year-old in the men's league, such as the SHL.
Mm-hmm.
Truly remarkable. And even him playing in the World Juniors this year in Edmonton has been truly sensational as well. Although the Sweden team used Hugo more in net, the times that Wallstedt played, he was fantastic against the other teams. And I think, like, honestly, he shouldn't be falling past top 10. I think he should be like a top 5, top 6, 100%. Such a good upside goaltender for sure.
And the other goaltenders coming out of the WHL is Sebastian Casal, who is a guy that, again, it's very varied where he might go with a lot of these players in this draft. He seems to be the main rival to Wallstedt as far as the best goalies that could go in the first round coming into this year's draft. Where do you think how do you think he compares to Wallstedt, and do you think that the rankings that have Wallstedt higher are correct?
I think with Wallstedt, he's a very technical goaltender for sure. He's smart. He knows where their position. So, and I think compared towards Koska, who's obviously a lot bigger, 6'6",
Mm-hmm.
playing with Edmonton, same with Gunther. He's a lot more athletic. I mean, some of the stats he have might be inflated due to the conference they're in. The other teams in WHL aren't as good as Edmonton for
Yep.
sure. But what I've seen from Koska is he's solid athletically. He knows his angles pretty well, such like that. It's just to see now next year if he can progress from having a 941 save percentage and see if he can fare well with other teams in WHL and potentially maybe carry Edmonton to the Memorial Cup probably, and see how his development takes from there. But if I have to choose one, either Wallstedt or Casa, Wallstad's more better in terms of just overall upside. I feel like Wallstad could be like a Vezina winning type caliber goaltender, where Koska is more like a solid starter. I think, yeah, solid starter, 1A, 1B type of guy who can put him in the starter, and he can play fine for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
All right, definitely makes sense. So, as we get down towards the end here, is there anything else you just want to add in about this year's draft and something that the people watching should know heading into this first round coming up on Friday night?
I think for this time, there's lots of players too that, although might not be undervalued by Bob McKenzie and other lists, there's other players that are very, very good players for sure. Logan Stankoven, although he's 5'8", brings a lot of punch to his game. Great offensive guy, good shot, and he's gonna have kind of a similar story to what Cole Caulfield did in 2019. Cole Caulfield was in 2019, him slipping a bit because of his size. Guys like Fabian Liesel, if you just look at his point total, it's just 3 points in 26 games, I believe. He doesn't look too out flashy there, but again, he's playing with men, and I think his offensive upside, just him with his hands, his skating ability, he's able to put a punch, giving the offensive upside, plus being competent defensively as well. Uh, he's a solid player, and other guys like Isaac Rosen, another guy from Sweden, good shot, good playmaker, a bit undersized at 161, I believe, but he could be a really good player for sure. And I think that although we don't know too much about some of the players, especially the OHL guys who haven't even got a chance to play, I think this draft looks to be pretty solid if you look into more of the prospects more. I think this draft could be pretty solid.
Awesome. I do too. I think this is looking like a pretty darn good draft class heading in here, and there's definitely going to be some really good players that come out of it. But thank you so much for coming on. It was great to get a chance to talk to you. I know that draft time is an exciting one for you as someone who delves deep into the prospects and into scouting and all of that. So thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this video.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, that's going to do it, everyone. Again, this was Raybro coming on. What an absolute legend. And we will have the first round of the 2021 NHL draft coming up on Friday night. I'll be live for it, of course. And we will see who goes 1 overall, who goes in the top 10, and where all these players end up finding their new NHL homes. Thanks for watching, everybody, and talk to you soon.